Howdy, folks. Happy Thursday. It is 70 degrees in Buffalo. I don't know what the hell to do with myself. I had to break out my shorts and T-shirts and all that.
Then why are you wearing a long-sleeve shirt?
Well, I had to maintain a certain amount of decorum for the show, you know. I mean,
Okay.
Well-dressed, as I usually am, Russ. Start us off with the pre-show.
So this morning I interviewed a singer, Leah Martin Brown from Evil Walks. I've interviewed her. This is my second time. She's Australian, and I'm always fascinated with the Australian lifestyle, even though she's lived in LA and she's in Sweden at the moment. People can go listen to it on my SoundCloud-Russ Cohen. Also, all the post is on there. Anyhow, the interesting thing, though, is she mentioned that they have lifeguard world championships there, and they consider that a sport. Now, again, being a lifeguard's hard, right? It's one of those things where it's really taxing. And I made the joke. I said, well, we have Baywatch, and and she laughed about it. But what was interesting was when she got further into it, besides that being a sport, when you're like a lifeguard at a beach in Australia, you only work Monday through Friday. Now think about that for a minute.
So you can work on Saturday and Sunday?
So listen, so the lifeguard only works Monday through Friday. Saturday and Sunday are actually volunteer positions at the beach, and usually like elite athletes are the people that fill in and do it. Like, that's an amazing thing if you think about it, but it's like, so what would you rather be swimming like in the deep water Monday through Friday or Saturday and Sunday? I'd rather be doing it Saturday and Sunday, I think. Because then they have the real elite Latin.
Well, I don't know if it's like an Australian rules football halfback will probably tackle you in the.
No, they have to have some swimming ability, Michael. Come on. But I just think it's interesting that the regular lifeguards, is a Monday through Friday job.
Yeah, you would think. Yeah, you would think weekends would be it, but I guess whatever the rules are in Australia, they do as they do down there.
It's a different world there, man.
Yeah, I mean, you flush the toilet, the water goes the other way, and everything else. So
Yeah.
And on Saturday and Sunday, they must be eating their Vegemite sandwiches.
All right, Mike, let's move on.
Hello, Hockey World. Today is Thursday, March 11th, 2021.
I'm Anthony Mingioni.
Russ Cohen from Sportsology.
And I'm Michael Agello, and this is the HockeyBuzzcast here on HockeyBuzz.com. A number of people have been talking about this, and I don't want to spend too much time on it, but apparently – I don't know if today is the day that the Rudy Gobert situation happened where they shut down.
It was. I think it is today, yeah.
So, I mean, a lot of people have been asking questions in conference calls about, the 1-year anniversary. And, everybody has lived what has gone on with the pandemic, in their own little world, in their own little way.
I'd like to say a year later, I still think he's a moron.
Who?
Rudy Gobert.
Oh, yeah. Well, yes. Yeah, especially
I've had a year to think about it, and I still think he's a moron.
Especially with the I'm touching everything thing that he did beforehand, like it was a joke. And then obviously, but so I was listening to a podcast, I think it was Bill Simmons' podcast, and he had a guest on who said, really it was sort of like the NBA. The NBA and their reaction to it brought everything home in terms of how serious it was, that that all sports shutting down was, everybody could say, it's like SARS in Canada where nothing stopped, but SARS was going on. No, everything stopped. The NBA shut down, the NHL shut down, life shut down and now, we're just sort of starting to come out of it after a year, Anthony. And a lot of people are still scared about like 20% of people at the Wells Fargo for a Flyers game, and I don't really blame them for being scared.
No, I think we still have to be, abundantly cautious. But I think we all remember, last March, how we all were really kind of, really nervous, in this situation. Still remember covering my last game, which happened to be I was not at the Bruins game, which was the last game before that, but I was at the Buffalo game that weekend. I remember talking to a number of reporters and saying, this thing sounds like it's getting bad. Like, I'm not sure how many games we have left. Right. And lo and behold, after that Bruins game,
that was it.
Everything shut down at that point. And we were all sort of like in a holding pattern, wondering the whole world's shutting down. Yeah. I mean, as many of you know, I'm a teacher, and schools literally by the end of that week were all shut down. And we were all kind of just in a whole. It was just a strange thing, and it was almost like, so what's going to happen next? Packing up food, things of that sort. What's going to occur? And things eventually, as we went along, turned into a bit of a different rhythm, like whatever we call the new normal. I mean, but from a sports perspective, it was obviously sports was the furthest things from our minds at that point.
Yeah, I covered that Bruins game, and I was in the Flyers locker room, and I took a picture of Giroux and Carter Hart because I was like, I wanted to mark time with it because I had a feeling we wouldn't be in there for a very long time, and we still haven't technically, not in the locker room. And on the Bruins side, though, it was weird because there was a podium in the hallway. It was in the hallway. It wasn't in the locker room, and it wasn't in like the lunchroom where Anthony knows, where it's a bigger area where you could have. No, this was in like the side hallway. There was a podium because there's a back door to it, and the player would walk up, and there was like 12 of us kind of jammed in with not great social distancing, and they thought it was safe because we were far from the players. And while that may be true, we weren't safe from each other, from the other.
They were worried about they were worried about the securing their investment. We're not
right.
We weren't a concern.
Well, right. It's funny, Russ, because and you've been in the media room at Scotiabank Arena. What that last game before, I think it was Tampa Bay that they played. I wasn't there because I split my my access with Rob Del Mundo for another site. He was at that game, I believe, and they were all sitting in that media room with the podium 6 feet or 7 feet away from, but the reporters were all sitting next to each other, and I don't think anybody had masks at that point.
No, we didn't. So, none of us had masks.
Right, and by the way, folks, the last game that I attended before they shut the border was the David Ayers game. So please remind. Yeah, of course. Golf clap. Thank you, Russ.
No, listen. You should honestly. You should wear that with a badge of honor.
Oh yeah, sure I should.
Seriously, if that was supposed to be your last game, you saw something that, if you take the Leaf part out of it, Mike, was a remarkable moment. But I know that's mission impossible for you to do.
I just hope that is not my. I just hope that's not my last game, Anthony, because I haven't been over the border since February 22nd, 2020, and I miss Canada. I love Canada. It's my second favorite country.
Yeah, and I will say, I mean, Russ and I, we've been fortunate in terms of covering the Flyers since they came back, and we're, I consider, to be, I don't want to use the phrase of blessing, but yeah, you get the idea.
Now, segueing,
and I have scouted a new goalie for the Leafs, Mike, Troy Grosnick. Hopefully,
yes, I know. Well, please, just shut up. I mean, Troy, he makes Michael Hutchinson look like George Vezina.
He'd be very cap friendly.
Well, yeah, okay. Okay, so but segueing into the Canadian aspect here, Bill Daly and Gary Bettman held a conference call today. One day after Gary Bettman had a conference call with announcing the ESPN deal. We'll talk about that in a second. But Bill Daly indicated the North Division is a one and done, which is not a shock. I mean, if anybody had, visionary dreams of the Canadian division staying as is, no, especially in a town like Buffalo, they want Toronto here 2 or 3 times. It means big money to them. So I didn't think that was, so basically the only changes in the divisional setup next year will be Seattle in the Pacific and Arizona moving into the Central, which, if Arizona eventually moves to Houston, that'll be even more perfect.
It would work out, wouldn't it?
Yeah, it would. And I still have those doubts in terms of, the viability of the Coyotes, but Daly confirmed that nothing is 100% definitive, but he's basically said that the draft, Russ, will stay July 23rd or 24th, but they have not indicated where or if it's virtual. I'm just going to guess, Anthony. I think it's going to be virtual.
I think so too. And Russ and I had this conversation on actually Tuesday. I think we had it on a couple days ago at the Flyers Sabres game about what will occur. I'm trying to figure things out too, with regards to if there is a draft, and it is, where the location will be. It just feels like window of time to me feels like. I still feel like I agree with Mike. I think they'll probably lean towards a virtual thing because but it's a short window to get things set up. You know how they like to have these things well in advance.
They can do it because really
But
All they
where?
have to do-
Where
the
would you
reason-
say?
The reason it takes a long time is because they have to send somebody, right, to scout out the location. They usually go for 2 or 3 locations and try and figure it out, right? But if they know where they might want to do it and they just want to see where the state of the vaccine is, if other leagues decide not to go virtual, they might change their mind. I think if they were going to do virtual, they would just say it already. Like, why wouldn't you just say it today?
Yeah, maybe they're holding out hope that they can do it.
I think they're holding out a little hope.
Like all things right now in 2020 and 2021, that everything's kind of we'll see, and then
it is
like from there.
What would be the least impactful or the easiest one? I think Vegas would, because if they have the NHL awards, that might be virtual too. But if they have some sort of ceremony for the NHL awards, even if it's Bettman on a stage with nobody, they probably do it in Vegas, and then you've got how many hotels, and Vegas would love to have all these reporters and everybody coming in there.
It definitely could be done.
Yeah, and you could do it outdoor at night.
Do it outdoors. That's what my suggestion is.
That's the key. They can do it in an outdoor setting in this circumstance, then that would probably be the safest call. But again, we are talking about Vegas at what time of year?
So what?
Yeah, but at night.
Right.
At
night. Or at night.
You could basically have the first round on the Friday night outdoors, and then maybe you have rounds 2 through 7 virtual the next day, because they have them in the morning, and you can't do it when it's 100 degrees outside in Vegas unless you're under a tent or something. But they had the NFL draft. Was it in Philadelphia? When that wasn't completely outdoor, was it? Wasn't there like an indoor aspect to it?
No, that thing was out. That thing was completely on the Parkway.
So people were getting baked outside.
Yeah, but you could do it.
Yeah.
Okay.
But that's also legal now in Pennsylvania, Mike.
Getting baked? Oh, that kind of baked. Oh,
that's where I thought you were going with that.
No, I wasn't, but Russ's mind is in the Bourbon. Okay, so other things that came out of the conference call, the Board of Governors are going to be reviewing the proposed draft lottery changes. I mean, I don't know what the big whoop is about the changes. I think they're fairly subtle and not.
I think they're subtle enough, and I just I think we've grown accustomed to hearing complaints about anything that's involved with the draft lottery. I think no matter what, you can't satisfy.
If you change
everybody.
anything about anything, Russ, people are going to complain. Yeah. You too. You complain about things that get.
Yeah, but I mean, I haven't complained about the draft lottery.
No, he's right. Listen, nobody touched the draft. It's fine. It's fine as long as it happens.
And Russ, just a note before we move on. I talk about a team that has a lot riding on the next draft, because they're probably going to have a top 3 pick in the Buffalo Sabres. Mm-hmm. Lance Sowski from the Buffalo News, who I know pretty well, who covers the team. The Sabres don't have a Western Hockey League scout. They don't have a scout in Finland. They don't have a scout in Russia. They don't have a scout covering the Ontario Hockey League. Excuse me, what are you going to do? Get the book from the Central Scouting and the NHL for the NHL and use that?
They could buy the HockeyProspect.com.
There we go.
There you go.
Just waiting for that one.
That's a good place to start.
Maybe you should go check out Elite Prospects.
Yeah.
If we're gonna keep the promotion going here, let's keep it rolling, Russ.
Sportsology.com. I'll have a lot of draft profiles. But I mean, look, can it all be done with video? Sure. Mike, I think these last 2 tournaments that are going to happen, the All-American Prospects in Plymouth and the under-18s in Detroit, I'm pretty certain they're going to send somebody, at least one person. If they don't, they might as well do what St. Louis did in 1983 and just not show up at the draft. Just forget it. Just pack it in. You have to make some sort of effort. And their cutbacks are going to hurt them, though. You know what's going to hurt them? It is going to hurt them with the overseas picks, because that's the problem. A lot of teams are going to load up on these kids again this year, and there are going to be guys there's a player, as an example, because I looked him up the other day, Brendan Gorman. His brother plays at Princeton. He's going to play at Princeton. Mm-hmm. And so he plays at St. Sebastian. We scouted him last year. We said, hey, he's a pretty raw kid, but he's got some talent. Would be in this draft. He hasn't played this year. What's the odds you think he's getting drafted? 0.
Yeah.
And so there are a lot of those kids there'll be some Minnesota high school picks,
right?
But there's going to be a lot of kids left out in the cold for this year.
But that's what happened. What happened is sort of in a microcosm last year, I think is going to happen even more. And I talked about it when I talked about the Leafs pick, because they took one player from the CHL, one kid from the Q. They took everybody was U.S. colleges or Finland or Russia, everybody. It was like anybody who had a longer window, and they didn't have, and they don't have to sign to a contract, or they don't have to, include on the 50 pro contracts. That was the way they're going. And I think a lot more teams this year, I bet you the Leafs have 3 or 4 KHL scouts, whereas the Sabres have none. So
I would think there's going to be some teams that will go heavy USHL, especially now with this tournament coming up.
Right.
It's going to help these guys get an end with this draft, especially. Because, I've been speaking to people. There's a lot of people we haven't seen this year live. We may have seen them last year live at tournaments before things shut down, but there's a lot of people you haven't seen live this year. And so there's going to be a big last minute rush for all of that with the draft. And so, I think the Sabres, I think they could do okay with their first pick. That's the easy one.
Sure.
I think it's after that you have to worry.
Yeah. I couldn't pick Austin Matthews in 2016 with the number 1 pick.
Right.
All right, Anthony, Russ and I talked about the ESPN NHL 7-year contract. Of course, I think it's good. I just the thing that I didn't like, and I've listened to differing opinions regarding the new contract, is 25 games on ESPN or ABC during the regular season, and over 1,000 is ESPN Plus. So this is a streaming deal. The NHL is betting on streaming continuing to be big. And I don't know. I mean, maybe I'm just an old fart because I'm in my 50s and I'm used to cable and games on regular TV. And I'm not against streaming. I have Netflix. I have a few other things. So I'm open to streaming. But when it comes to live sports, I still want it on television. The NHL seems to be moving in a different direction with this deal.
They are, and that's, again, it appears to be that was their main thing that they wanted with out of this deal, and they're going to be kind of at the vanguard of that, I think, compared to some of the other leagues in this circumstance about how heavy this deal is going in that direction. Again, I think I will tell you again, when I first boot up most new TVs, when you boot them up, the first thing that comes up is your streaming apps.
Yeah.
It's the first thing, even before you put on your cable or anything else. If you turn off your TV, your smart TV is going to bump up your apps almost immediately. So if you got ESPN Plus in your app menu, boom, click, you want to watch the game and it's there. Right. It's almost going to be instantaneous. Now, it hasn't been perfect. For anybody who's watched Hulu knows Hulu sports have been touch and go at times in terms of quality of the feed and things of that sort. Right. But again, the expectation is ESPN's had some time to work with this, and that they can get this off the ground in a fairly smooth manner in this circumstance. Right. But again, you're competing. You have the NBA who's going to be getting the lion's share, because at the end of the day, they are, more people are watching that. But that being said, this is if the NHL is trying to carve out its own area, I'm okay with this deal being the way it is.
The only problem is, they're not really carving it out the way it was carved out on NBC, because with ESPN, they're now going to be the third sport on ESPN, because they still have baseball and they have the NBA.
Right.
So they're the third sport. At least with NBC, it wasn't the case.
Yeah, but at the end of the day, Russ, again, the access point to get with ESPN is still going to be greater than they had at NBC. You're going to trust me. I mean, but are you going to watch it on? You're more likely to access ESPN Plus or Peacock in this circumstance.
But they're not going to have a flagship place to watch these games. The other thing is, I think center ice is going to be dead now.
Well, it sounds like whatever NHL TV is basically moving to ESPN.
Yes.
So
right.
I don't know if
that's not center ice. That's the one that's on the cable package. I think that's dead now.
It might be.
Yeah,
but see the thing that concerns me is and the NHL may tweak the schedule a bit to avoid this from happening. And I said this to Russ yesterday, Anthony, was the fact that, okay, you have the NBA final and the Stanley Cup final pretty much happening at the same time. There's been situations where the NBA and the NHL get together and they alternate their schedules day by day, so they're not conflicting. I get that. That's good. But the thing is, the NBA final is going to be on ABC. The NHL, the Stanley Cup final on those 4 years when it's with ESPN, ABC, I don't think ABC is going to broadcast 7, 8, 9, 10 straight days of sports in June. If the NHL gets ESPN when the NBA gets ABC, or if there's on a Sunday night when they've got the Sunday night MLB game and that's written in their contract, does the NHL get moved to ESPN too? And
it's going to happen. Everybody's going to say it's not treatment. Look, everybody's going to say the language says this and it's not going to happen, and the language said it's not going to happen to Major League Baseball either, and it did. Right. So I think in the end it could. But I think the other thing that we're not talking about, and it's a little thing, but it kind of bugs me, and I bet it bugs other fans, and that is, so on ESPN Plus, I hear you get the home feed, right? That's what you're getting. And so like now, if you're a Leaf fan, but you live in the States, you're never going to hear your guy unless it's a home game.
So it's like the center ice package where you get they only have 14 channels to put the games on, and if you get Toronto Winnipeg, you could get Dennis Bayak instead of getting
right. And that's something that means, like, when you're paying money, and that does matter to fans. Like,
but then they're accounting for the fact that in most cases, aren't they going to be having the local broadcasters on? They're saying if you're in a different location versus if you're in a home market.
They should be able to have they should be able to have the broadcast option, like Game Center Live does.
MLB has both. You could do,
and that may be. Listen, at the end of the day, that could very well be something that is part of it. We don't know yet, but that could be a part of it.
It's not, but I hope it is.
Yeah. Now the other thing, and after that we'll move on to some.
One more thing. Does this? Now, ESPN has radio stations, sort of, right?
Yeah.
Does this help the NHL get on national radio? I would think that would be a good thing, because radio is still, a decent way to listen to a game in the car if you don't have Sirius and you're not doing that package.
I would think, because you have the Sunday night radio broadcast when you have like I think Dan Schulman was doing the radio. While somebody else was doing the TV, and then he moved to the TV. So, I think they would probably be part of that. But I mean, right now, what apparently it's going to be Thursday night hockey on ESPN. That's the 25 game. I think they'll probably mix in an occasional ABC game, but who knows? And not
during the Stanley Cup. It'll be on ABC, like one game.
Right. Well, no,
one or something, and that's after that.
Now the other thing regarding the TV content, it doubled the amount that they got from NBC. It was a little over $400 million a year, which is good, but now they have another package that they're trying to sell. And the news that came out today was that NBC is sort of standing pat on their offer, not willing to go any further. And Anthony, if that's the case, if they're like getting some sort of standoffishness from NBC, you could see Fox move in, because Fox, if in the 3 years, I would assume that the deal is going to be 7 years, like the ESPN deal. Then 3 years of that deal would be Stanley Cup Finals, and you would want Fox Network. Having on there, I mean, that brings a lot of eyeballs, because everybody's got Fox because of the NFL. So
exactly, and that's where the challenge is now for NBC again, especially when you no longer have an NBC Sports Network anymore, a national sports network. That takes, I think, a little bit away from.
They would have put it on USA then, probably.
Exactly, and put it on USA. But then again, how is the NHL looking at that? And I think in many ways, and this is my own speculation, but I'll throw it out there, is the fact that they wanted NBC to kind of move things forward when they got this thing out there that they were going to be making this deal with ESPN. They're trying to get the NBC, and NBC, as you said, it almost feels like a bluff call here.
They are being quoted. NBC's being quoted, so they're still serious enough that they're in it.
Yeah.
Honestly, I'll tell you what.
This might be a scare tactic.
I would be scared of it, and I would take less money to be on NBC than more money to be on Fox, because I don't trust how Fox did hockey the last time. I don't like their regional sports network. It's hard to find games sometimes. I don't know who they're going to have covering games. NBC has done a really good job here. And if NBC, because of Peacock and their whole restructuring, can't afford to go any higher, if I'm the NHL, I just got my extra money from ESPN. Let's just give a deal that works for NBC because they've been a good soldier here.
Well, according they want to get total between the two packages around $600 million, which means they would want to get essentially the same amount that they got from NBC that they got on the last deal. And to your point, it's like they've got Albert, they've got Tirico, they've got the structure. They have Catherine Tappan. I mean, they've been doing it for 10 years.
It is.
Yeah, but I think I think they're trying to push them for more money. If it's a difference of a couple $1 million, you stay with NBC. If you can make $50-100 million more going to Fox, they're going to Fox.
Yeah, I know. I get that part of it. My answer would be, you know what? We'll take less. Let's go to NBC. And if we want to give some free game access to Twitter with some kind of monetary deal there, or if we want to give some games to Amazon like the NFL did, then we can make up the difference there. Why aren't they doing that?
Yeah. All right. Now I let you guys know about what I wanted to talk about today, which is the buyers in the NHL. From everything that I've heard from, insiders like Pierre LeBrun and Elliot Friedman and Chris Johnston, it's been mostly the fact that this is going to be a buyer's market because there are going to be so many sellers, and there are not many teams that are willing to take on money. And even though these teams, some of the buyers don't have any cap space, a deal like what happened last year between Vegas, Chicago, and Toronto, the deal that sent Robin Leonard to the Golden Knights, Toronto acted as a middleman in that deal and took cap space for a draft pick. So you may see a lot that's an NBA type of 3-team deal. Right. You're going to see a lot more of that. The teams like New Jersey and Detroit and Ottawa are going to be – now, they can only retain, I think, money on 2 contracts. Each team can only do that. But we're talking about a lot of rental deals here, so it's something that drops off after the year. So this is like a golden ticket for, the Senators or the Devils. They can get assets for absolutely nothing for, basically cap space for 15 or 16 games. So it's going to be a benefit to them. But let's take a look at the buyers, at the teams I think are legitimate buyers, and just no cap ramifications, because I figure their general managers are going to be able to figure a way to get a player. Now, I don't think anybody's going to be able to get an $8 million player. Let's be within reason. No. But start with Tampa. I don't think they need anything. I think they're getting Kucherov back for the first game.
You might as well be getting that is an $8 million plus player right there.
He's their deadline ad. The only thing, Russ, that I could see them looking for is a cheap option as a number 3 goalie, because Curtis McElhinney in the games I've seen recently has not looked good.
Yeah, I could see them going for somebody.
Or maybe a cheap depth defense.
Like maybe even Craig Anderson if Washington says, we look all right now, and since he's on the taxi squad, there could be some sort of slight deal made. I could see that happening.
Yeah. Anthony, do you think they need anything else?
Again, as you said, goaltender again, just as an emergency thing. Again, they made their splashes last year.
Yeah,
at the deadline. I mean, they made their big moves and had those players in place, and those players are now carved in and have fit in exceptionally well in Tampa. So, really, other than a little minor tweak, like as you mentioned, I don't see much more than that.
Now, Carolina, their defense is great. Their forwards are pretty good. Svechnikov got injured I think the last game. I haven't heard any status on that. That might affect their.
I haven't either.
Teravainen's still in concussion protocol.
Right.
He's still not there yet.
But again, and not a backup, not a 3. I think Carolina, if they want to be, I think they're a legitimate cup contender, but if they want to be a top of the line contender, they got to find a goalie. And I don't think that they can go into the playoffs with Nedeljkovic, Mrazek, and Reimer and have any confidence that they're going to get out of their own division.
Here we are. It's like Groundhog Day with the Carolina Hurricanes.
Well, because they haven't addressed it. That's why. I mean,
exactly. Yes. Same boat. here we
Tom
are.
Waddell's got to do the same thing this year as he should have done last year, no doubt.
Yeah. Now, I mean, the option. I mean, we've talked about it, the options. There are not many options out there. It's Kemper,
and he's out, and he's hurt. He's week to week.
Right, yeah. and then
well, they upgraded that ant yesterday with a jaundice eye. I looked at the upgrade of the report on that, where they said now it's not week to week; it's actually less than that, because if he's week to week, then it runs into the trade deadline. So he'll probably get a start or two, and it's buyer beware.
They told Talk to chill.
Yeah, more buyer beware, I believe, on that.
Okay.
Now Florida, I think. I mean, okay, defensively they're not great, but they're okay. I mean, I don't think they really want to add there. I don't think they can really add in terms of goaltending because they're spending $10 million on their backup in Bobrovsky. I could see them if they could find themselves a cheap winger, somebody doesn't make a lot of money to add to their top nine. That probably would be the way that Bill Zito goes.
Well, I mean, they already did that with Carter Verhaeghe. What's the chances they could do that again? I think they're going to go a different way.
Okay.
I think they like their team to the point now where somehow maybe they could wrangle a deal for Yarmulson. I could see.
That is a very Florida-sounding move.
Yes.
Yeah.
That would be.
Yes. Yeah. No.
Plus, I also want to take my opportunity because I don't talk about the Florida Panthers enough to use the phrase in their goaltending situation, a dredge to nowhere. Sorry. I was there. I've been waiting for weeks.
Oh my God. Try the veal.
I mean, they could possibly, trade somebody like, maybe they could eat salary on Stralman and get Yarmulson and give him, a draft pick.
Well, I mean, talking about the sellers, I still, and we're going to get back to buyers in a second. Arizona, I'm convinced they're going to be a big seller, and especially those three defensemen, the three veteran defensemen, Yarmulson, Goligoski, and Demers. I mean, if a team needs a blue liner, it's like, Bill Armstrong saying, "Take me, I'm yours." I mean, he's got to try to recoup a lot of the draft picks that they were penalized for and that they traded.
But he can't pull the plug if they're in it, though, because that's going to look worse.
Therein lies and that's the rub for them.
Well, that's the thing.
March 31st, they should look at things and say,
right,
where are we? And if they're not in a good place, make your deals then, because then that gives a team who's getting the players time for quarantine, whether it's a week or 10 days or 14 days, whatever it is then.
Right.
And you know what? That's the way I would run it.
And right now they're only 2 points behind Colorado, but everybody thinks Colorado is going to pull away. Minnesota's got 31. They got the Kings in between them, and then there's a drop off. So yeah, if they fall 6-8 points behind, it's sale time. The New York Islanders. I think they need offense.
Well, I got a question, Mike, that I'm going to throw it out there now because it makes a lot of sense.
Okay.
This is from Chris Lizza, who has the Eye on Isles website. But this is really good. He's like, hey, I heard you say, Ricard Raquel is out there, and the same way that the Islanders were able to get Pajot, could they get Raquel? And I think that is a guy they could identify. They could trade someone like Chris said, hey, what about like Bodie Wild and a pick? And I think he's not that far off. I think that's something that would interest them.
I think it would take a little more. I think I don't think they'd give up Wallstrom. I mean, they're not
giving up Wallstrom.
But yeah, I mean, the first thing is Raquel is not. I mean, Pajot was a rental, and then they signed him. Raquel,
I know, but they can
got another year left. So you're probably talking. Remember, when these players and it's a non-rental situation, the price goes up. I think they'd probably have to trade a first-round pick and Bodie Wild. A first.
Right, well, that's what I mean. A first, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if that might be. I mean, that might be possible.
I think he's onto something. I think that is something where I could see Lou doing that. And you know what? That would be just enough offense that could get the Islanders to the Stanley Cup. It could.
Yeah. What do you think, Anthony?
Yeah, I concur on that. Again, that's the one area to me that they just need a little bit more. When we watched them in the conference finals last year, it was just that one little extra thing that Tampa had that they just didn't have.
Right.
And that again, they both. I think they matched. They matched in terms of the grit level.
Yes,
we all know that was it. That was a wash. So you just need to be able to somehow be able to match Tampa and the upper echelon teams on skill and scoring, and that's really where they're at. They got a good base. We all know the Islanders have an excellent base to start from.
Yeah,
it's just a case of
better deal. Sorry, that's a better deal than the Komarov for Brett Connolly deal, because Connolly's offense, even though he's good in the playoffs, not going to be like Raquel.
No. I mean, Raquel's a top 6 forward. Washington, I mean, they added Chara. Their defense, I think, is a little more solidified than it was.
Steady. It's steadier than it was last year.
Now you have Brendan Dillon and you have Chara on top.
Dillon's playing a lot, man.
Carlson.
Yes, we saw that the other night. He's playing a good bit.
Yeah. So, obviously, I think goaltending, but I think that, if Samsonov is back and healthy and Vanacek has been a good number 2, I don't know where they could improve. I mean, somebody said
I don't think they're going to do anything with it, to be honest.
Yeah, maybe
a depth forward, at most, just to have an additional player. But even then, I think they got enough depth there. The Caps, especially the style, especially stylistically. I think Laviolette, the usual Laviolette effect in year 1.
A cheap depth forward would probably be the most I could see for that.
You're looking for a third or fourth line player that you think will give you a little something that can help, especially when Laviolette's system is what it is. You need to have 4 lines and they're high tempo forecheck. You're going to look for a player like that, I think.
Now, I think Pittsburgh is going to do something. They've played better ever since they made the changeover. I've heard the talk about Bobby Ryan, and that makes a lot of sense because Brian Burke drafted Bobby Ryan in Anaheim when he was GM there, and he's a $1 million contract. There are contracts that Pittsburgh could send to Detroit and open up space to make other moves. So, I mean, I think, would they like to get maybe a more steady backup for Jari than Casey DeSmith? Maybe.
That's would be the area that I would look at with Pittsburgh is more. I think they have to be looking for a steadier backup and not have to ride Jari hard here, because they already are. They've already done that already since he came back. So that's my biggest thing with Pittsburgh. And again, they're in the market for a defenseman. We know that.
Yeah, they definitely.
They're going to look again. If we're talking about, for the competition for any of the defensemen that are on the market, if Pittsburgh thinks they've got a chance, they are going to be looking at a defenseman for sure.
Look, I could see them moving like CC and trying to upgrade at the position and throwing in a prospect in that deal. Not a grade A prospect, but if you went to somebody and said, I don't know, let's find a team. Like
the Rangers, call him up for Jack Johnson.
Yeah, I mean, they would probably want someone a little better than that, because they had him. But yeah, that kind of player, though, I mean, it's not that far off. And I could see them doing something like that. I'm trying to really think like who's a bottom. Let me look at the Senators roster, because they would be the team.
They've had Eric Branson already, so
yeah, they had Branson already.
And Ottawa would have to retain about half of his $4 million salary, so that probably wouldn't work. But he's a UFA,
and very well could be in on another. Again, if they're really looking to solidify things, they very well could be in on Ekholm.
Well,
the problem is I don't know if they've had. I'm not sure if they have what's enough in system to make that move in its entirety to it.
All right, here's what you do.
Richard in the chat said Mark Stahl. If Detroit retained 50% of Mark Stahl's contract, that might be something.
I'm going to do this one. Stahl still has mobility issues. When it slows down, he'll be able to do something, but it's going to be the same thing. Like, what's Bogosian really going to do for the Leafs when the rubber hits
David
the road?
Savard, maybe Savard.
Savard's too much money. I got it. I think let's send Ceci back to Ottawa, which they clearly like him in that area. So
no, they don't.
It doesn't matter. He's expiring contract.
Dispose Ceci, but then what are they going after?
Mike Riley, and the contracts are close. And you would just have to give him another prospect. I think they still would take Ceci back, because I don't think it's going to matter to what the makeup of the Ottawa Senators is. Your bias for Cody Ceci aside, Mike.
No. I
knew that was getting dropped in.
Believe me, I heard so much basically happiness from the Ottawa fans and Ottawa people that Ceci was going to Toronto, because they hate Toronto and they hate Ceci, because Ceci's been a disappointment for them for a long time.
Upload the Ceci virus.
Yeah.
No, but I'm just saying He is an expiring contract.
Yeah, no, I get it.
They were getting a player that they wanted. Like maybe they even throw in like I said, Sam Lafferty, a guy like that. If they get somebody they want, that they feel like they could plug into the lineup, that's not a big ad salary-wise for Pittsburgh. But Mike Riley would be an upgrade. Yeah.
Now Boston, I think Boston's going to go after scoring. I mean, I've heard they basically don't have any consistent scoring after the genius line.
This is every year for them.
Just play Philadelphia all the time, and they'll scoring problems.
It won't matter. Pasternak will score for everybody.
Exactly.
Right. But when they play anybody else, I mean,
that's true. Yes.
Krejci is getting old. Coyle's not having a good year. Now, Nick Ritchie's had a good year. Kasha hasn't played. He has to be hurt.
There's still a weird thing going on with that Kasha. His brother's playing in Lehigh, but that Kasha, there is something, Andre, there's something weird going on because he hasn't even started skating, I don't think, for this season yet.
Right, and they're talking about moving to Brusque. So, I mean, honestly, I wouldn't doubt it because the Anaheim-Boston pipeline happened twice last year. I wouldn't doubt that they're in on Raquel, or maybe they're in on Hurdle because there's a lot of talk about Hurdle being traded from San Jose.
I'm going to go and think like, what has Boston been doing the last 2 years? They've been getting big, heavy players. Yeah. This is maybe where they go for like Logan Couture and say, oh, you know what? Couture would look good on that team, and he's a cheap salary, so we can afford him. We've got prospects.
$8 million is not a cheap salary, and he's
nope.
He's not $8 million a year.
$8 million a year for 6 more years. That's a hell of an investment.
Not Logan Couture. I'm sorry. No. Not Logan Couture. I meant
I was going to say Couture. I was like
Krause?
Lawson Krause. Sorry.
Okay. Yeah,
I mean, when you said Couture, I'm like, really? We're going there?
That's a brain fart.
That's a Bruin.
Lawson Krause, because he's cheap. You could trade him a prospect for that.
And his value is low right now because he's not.
His value is low, and he's got the brute force that they like.
I think that's conceivable.
I don't know why Logan Couture came.
No, but Flamester in the chat was saying Sam Bennett to the Bruins. I honestly, I don't think they're going to
want to do it.
I don't think they're going to trade Sam Bennett right now because they're going to try to see if Sutter can get something out of him before they throw him overboard.
Yeah.
Philadelphia, I'll throw this one to you, Anthony. I think they need that left side of the defense. They obviously need, they need a top pairing defenseman to play with Provorov. Mm-hmm. I think Ek throughout Savard. We've heard rumors of Ekholm. There are other players out there, but what do you think?
Yeah, at the end of the day, defense is the key for Philadelphia. This has been a discussion since the minute that we got word about Matt Niskanen retiring. I think, for Philadelphia, their defense just looks incomplete this year. It just does. It looks like it's that piece that helps to not only click the top four together, but also move some of the other defensemen who may be in higher roles down to roles that are that fit them a little bit more. Right. The other areas with Philadelphia, I think you're looking for potentially maybe a little bit of forward depth, depending again on where they go defensively. Again, Savard's a possibility. I think Ekholm is a definite. I think he's a possibility for sure. I think Philly's right in on that. Yeah, I know everybody's been talking about Brent Burns. I don't see it. I know the history there. I know people were talking about that.
Well, they have to finish the Ekholm discussion first before they think about Burns. I think
exactly. I think if you're looking at the player who I think would fit their blue line the best, you're in the Ekholm and Savard discussion.
Until they're out of that discussion,
right? Then until they're out of that discussion there. But I think also depth forward is something that they have to look at as well. Especially if they do end up making a trade for a top four defenseman and it involves picks and potentially a player, then you may need to fill in certain things into the roster. I do think they need a forward who's willing to physically engaged in their bottom six.
That would not well in Lehigh. I get a lot of reports because I haven't watched too many games yet, and Tanner Lisinski is doing well. He's playing in all situations. He's physical. You never know. By the end of the year, they might be able to slide him in.
We were looking at him in the offseason and thinking he was going to be a potential player there, but I think they wanted to give him a little bit of time to develop in this environment. So
see here, he's not a kid. He's like 22, 23.
Right.
Here's the thing about the Brent Burns that I think I'm skeptical about anybody trading for him. Okay, he's got 4 more years at $8 million, and he's 36 years old. He's only got 12 points this year. Nobody is sending a life raft to Doug Wilson.
No, they would have to eat some money, but listen.
Well, either that or
he's just a 12-point player. Like, we know he's much better than that.
No, but either that, Russ, or it would have to be a LeCavier situation where they find out how many years are you going to play. If you're going to play 2 more years, then okay, we'll trade for you. If you want to play out your contract, go to hell, because
I think Burns is kind of aloof, though. I don't think you'd ever get a straight answer.
Exactly. That's why I think San Jose stuck with him. I think that's
for those asking about Myers in the chat, yes, Phil is scratched for tonight. If you check Bill Meltzer's tweet, he actually has the full quote from Adam Kimmelman on the reasons as to why. Consistency is the biggest issue according to Vigneault. So if those asking in the chat,
I mean, his
yes,
game has fallen off. There's no question.
And even in the advanced numbers as well, there's a definite. Charlie O'Connor put that up where, if you're basing this also on numbers as well, the numbers are not great either.
Now, moving to Vegas, I mean, right now, Leonard's been on LTIR since I believe it's been over a month, and Fleury's playing great for them.
And he didn't play great last night. He played great for 2 periods, and that third period he melted down.
But I don't think they're going to go out and trade for a great.
No.
The concern is that Pietrangelo is out indefinitely. It seems
they're not even talking about a return yet.
Yeah, that seems to be a serious injury. So I mean,
all the board would say is he doesn't think it's overly serious. That's all he would say.
Right, but if it is serious, then I think that they're probably going to be looking for a defenseman for depth to get through the rest of the regular season, and then hope Pietrangelo comes back. I mean, Anthony, I don't see them going out and making a big move, because they're right up against it right now.
Yeah, exactly. I think in many ways they're going to have to ride with what they have, and honestly, if I'm Vegas, that's exactly what I do in this.
Unless they're willing to do a money in, money out deal.
That's how they have to do it. Exactly. And
I do have to answer the chat room for one thing. Timothy Park says, Hockey Debates podcast is on right now with Kevin Allen, Bob Duff, and Lindsey B. Then go watch that, Timothy. Otherwise, pay attention here. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, believe me, they're both saved on YouTube. You can watch one after the other. Thanks. Now, and the only thing is, I look at some of the contracts that Vegas could move out, that maybe teams would be interested in. They could trade Ryan Reeves. He's 1.75. Riley Smith has got another year at 5.
They could trade Reeves. Kolasar has sort of walked into that role now for Vegas, being a tough guy. And Reeves, they would save a lot of money on that if they did that.
Right. So I mean, there are players that have short term. I mean, I don't think they want to move Marchessault or Tuck or Carlson.
Oh, they're not moving Tuck. Alex Tuck is having the kind of year where Anthony and I were debating Stanheim or Tuck for the Flyers. They did well either way, but Tuck is becoming he's got 12 goals or 13 goals.
Yeah, no, that's not happening. St. Louis, Tarasenko just got back in, I believe, a couple games.
He did.
Bozak is out. They've had some injuries. I think they're probably just
going to win at home.
Yeah, I think they're just going to probably go depth forward if possible. I mean, just add to what they already have, but nothing of a big serious nature. Anything?
Yeah, I think that's right. I think they'd like to get a better look. If you want to talk about a team that could probably use a Luke Glendening, it's probably that team.
Yeah. Minnesota. I don't think Minnesota is going to do anything, because I think they're playing with house money.
No, they're going to do something.
You think so?
Yes. The positivity on that team right now.
Yeah.
Kirill Kaprizov is just magic, right?
Yeah.
And to watch him, and I've always thought Matt Zuccarello was sort of like this, and I don't want to, just this strange, fun hockey guy. When you interview him, he is a different kind of breed of person, man.
Russ, he's the next Panarin.
Yeah, with that combination right now is fueling that team. But Greenway's playing well. Eriksson Ek has finally reached his potential. And so I do think they would get a veteran, but not a really old one. But I do think if they got a veteran that was physical, like if they were the ones that were to get Komarov, that could work for them.
Yeah, I mean, he's a rental. No, I think Komarov's got another year left. That's probably
I think Guerin would be okay with that, knowing that, hey, we're going into the playoffs, and if we have something the Islanders want, hell, when are we going to face them anyhow? Sure. You don't worry about it.
Now, Colorado, Anthony, I still I mean, okay, they're settled on Bauer as their starting goaltender, and if he's healthy, he's in there. But Hunter Miska is their backup, and that's the thing. This is a loaded team. And
it has a little bit of a Trojan horse aspect to it when it comes to their goaltending.
If Kemper is out there and they can trade for him, I would not give up anything. But it
would be a perfect. Yeah, again, it's an it's also an in division. In this case, it's probably the time to probably do that. But
it's if Arizona is out of it. I mean,
if Arizona is out of it, which they're not. So, but yeah, Kemper to me would be a guy who would click in very quickly for that roster.
The quarantine period would be short. He'd only have to do the 4 negative tests, and then he could play.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Now, okay, let's move to the.
I just want to answer this for William. Montour, I don't think is a match for Pittsburgh because I don't think he plays the kind of game that Hextall and Burke will want. There's no physicality there, and he's a little bit too much of a turnover guy. He had a great goal against Philly the other night. He still has the offense. But the other parts, I don't think they want a part of.
I do want to answer also. Randy was asking about, what are you doing back to Philadelphia? What are you doing with Gostisbehere? I think if Philadelphia ends up making a trade of any kind for a defenseman, I think there's a pretty good chance that Shane Gostisbehere may be included in that deal. Yeah, that's what I will say at this point. If they make a move, I may be wrong on that though.
Montour could be a fit for Vegas because if they retain 50% of the salary, because he's a right-handed defenseman. You could play him in place of Pietrangelo in your top 4, and then move him down once Pietrangelo. It all depends on how serious the injury is. If Pietrangelo comes back in a couple weeks, then cap-wise they can't do it. But if he's out, until late April, then they just hold him out the rest of the regular season and play him in the first game of the playoffs.
Mike, I did want to make one other note with St. Louis. While Hoffman's doing well, Jordan Kyrou is their 4th leading scorer, so he has finally come of age. They let him marinate just the right way. I felt like they did the right things with Kyrou.
And I can't remember who was talking about him, but I remember somebody saying it's like they're a pretty slow team, but Kyrou makes teams sort of stand on edge because he's very fast and he
gets the puck in the zone quickly and he can really fire off great passes.
Here's the thing: Russ mentioned marinate. He was telling me last game about, the amazing salmon that he had made. So I'm assuming marinade was probably involved, hence why I didn't.
No, actually, no. It was the it was that.
It was there. I'm sorry, I had to take it.
I know. I'm trying to think. It's the salmon magic. Never use salmon magic.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, that's what we use here. Yeah,
cool.
Okay. Now the North Division, and here the complicating factor here is, and Elliot Friedman talked about this today on Toronto radio, that there might be some situation. I think it was Elliot. If it wasn't out, I apologize. But somebody said that there is the possibility of the 14-day quarantine being reduced. As
it was Elliot,
yeah. And now if that's the case, then I think things are less complicated for the Canadian teams. But if it's 14 days, as we saw with the Pierre-Luc Dubois situation, he sat for 14 days, he couldn't skate, he couldn't do anything, and then he played in one game and he got hurt because he had been inactive for 14 days. So that might make these teams make deals earlier. Now, Montreal, I don't know if I consider them a legitimate Stanley Cup contender, but I'll put them in here because if I don't, the Habs fans will lose their minds. Honestly, I think what they need is a center, but I don't think they're going to get a center before the deadline. But I think that they need. Danault has got 1 goal. Suzuki and Kotkaniemi have not repeated what they did in the bubble. I think Price will bounce back, but
he's
still
already started to bounce back,
right?
Yeah.
So, but Anthony, I think they need help up the middle, and I just don't know if they can get anything that would really help them.
Not in terms. The center situation always seems to be the bugaboo for Montreal, isn't it?
Yeah.
Almost every time. How many years now? 5 years now? 4 or 5 years now? At least in terms of Montreal's looking for that centerman. I don't know.
Here's the thing.
Good.
Ryan Poehling is a center, and he's got 4 points in 9 games.
You've been on the Poehling wagon for a long time. I know.
And he had concussion problems, but he doesn't now. He is a physical guy.
Yeah.
Maybe you bring him in and make him your 4th line center.
Well, I mean, hey, the way he played in that one game, he scored a
hat-trick game. Yeah.
I mean, believe me, the Leafs were looking towards the playoffs, but I can't take anything away. The guy
maybe. I mean, what we'll say, Eric Stahl's a possibility there, maybe.
Sure. Yeah, possibly, but we'll talk about the Leafs. There's Friedman talked about Stahl, and I've been talking about Stahl for about a month. It makes.
I know Toronto.
Just to answer the chat room, Salmon Magic is like Chef Paul's. It's in like a orangey kind of color canister.
Go get it, Russ. Go to your kitchen and grab it.
Is it like Old Bay? Is it like sprinkle it on? And
yeah, it's like Old Bay, but it's got a different mix, and it's good.
Okay. Yeah. I'll give it a try. Winnipeg Jets. Defense. They have. They have three of the best four.
That's the team that I'm looking at as a possible. If we're talking at home,
yes.
If we're talking at home, Winnipeg is definitely a team I'm looking at and saying.
And another one.
Okay.
I could see if, let's say, Philly gets Ekholm, right? Just for argument's sake. Maybe the Rangers knock on their door and say, "Hey, Brendan Smith's available," and you know what? At this point, at least he's a physical defenseman. They might go for it. I
think they need left D more than right D. I think that's their weak side. But I don't know. I mean, I think they need definitely a top four defenseman. If they get Ekholm, if they get say a Goligoski and they get him cheap, their defense would be, I think, good enough with Hellebuck that they could get out of the door. They really impress me. I mean, Hellebuck is one of the best goalies in hockey, no doubt. Edmonton.
I called it back-to-back Vezines. That's what
you did. You did. I'll give you that one. I called Kaprizov for the Calder.
We both did.
Sorokin, who Edmonton.
Boy, if they played Ottawa all the time, they'd win the Stanley Cup.
Yeah, please. That's smoke and mirrors.
It's a game against Ottawa.
This is the funny thing, Anthony. They rolled the dice as a depth center on Kyle Turris, and already, now you're hearing, Stahl was mentioned in connection with the Oilers, and other centers out there mentioned in connection to the Oilers. So they're clearly not happy with, and also the fact is that their recent success has been paired with Draisaitl moving up to the wing to play with McDavid. You're putting all your eggs in one basket. I haven't watched any Oilers game recently. I don't know if they're putting.
I watched yesterday.
Yeah, did they have Nugent Hopkins with Draisaitl and McDavid, or did they have?
I believe they did for a part of that game. Yeah.
So it's
three centers.
Three centers, a number one pick.
I know there was one play where Nugent Hopkins set up Draisaitl, and I think McDavid was on the line too.
Sure, wasn't a power play.
I'm pretty sure it wasn't a power play.
Okay.
Yeah,
so 100% sure. No, I'm not.
I think they need goaltending, but they're not.
They're not going to do that. They have Stalock now.
Exactly. I was going to say they got Stalock, man.
Yeah.
Okay, Mike.
No, I'm just saying. It's like whatever.
Yeah, you're like a Swedish chef when it comes to that.
But no,
just don't be Linda Cohn and ask for a hamburger. That was the best. I love that commercial.
That's a good commercial.
It was still my favorite.
I like that one.
You start flipping out.
By the way, you poo-pooed this, Russ, yesterday. There was a piece by, I think it was Scott Burnside, about Gary Thorne. Gary Thorne said,
I sent you the message. I sent you the picture of the quote.
It's a long path to being signed from him saying, well, I'll talk to him and listen to him. Of course he's going to. If they offer him a big contract, you don't think Gary Thorne's going to take it? But are they going to offer him?
I think here's the deal. I see it as nostalgia. They're going to tap nostalgia in the first 1 or 2 years, and we'll see how things go. My gut feeling is if they want to bring Gary back, Gary will be back. That's my feeling on that there. That they're going to want to tap in. And I know there have been some talk, and I think I'm trying to remember who said it, that maybe Billy Clement might be coaxed out of for maybe a year or two.
Any part of Billy.
That 1 year.
He really annoyed them to the point where I think some of the management's still there from that game where, he started stripping and look, it was funny, but he did. He started taking off his clothes. They showed it the other day again with Doc Emmerich.
Russ, it was an homage to Jules Breton. Come on.
I get it, but I'm just saying. But here's the other thing. I don't think they're going to make Gary Thorne the main guy. What they might do is sprinkle in Gary Thorne once a week.
Yes. Oh no, that's exactly.
I think it'll be if they have this Thursday night game.
They might do it for
it's
that.
It'll be Thorne. If they have this Thursday night hockey game, they'll have Thorne, and that ends up being their feature game of the week. He'll do. I absolutely would be a one.
But I don't think he'll be their main guy for the Stanley Cup. I don't think he'll be their main guy.
I think their main guy is going to be Levy. I think it's going to be Levy.
I do think it's Levy.
I would concur with that.
Because Levy has reached an upper echelon level now with him doing Monday Night Football, and the schedule is conflict. So, if he's doing Thursday night hockey on ESPN when he's doing Monday Night Football, and then he does the Stanley Cup playoffs. Yeah. Okay. So finish with Toronto. Clearly, I mean, it's been out there for easily a month. They're going to go after. They're going to find a top 6 forward to play with Tavares and Nylander. Only in the last week or so has it been rumored that they're, obviously they're like right up against the cap. They have like $130,000 in cap space at the deadline. That's going to mean money in, money out. I wrote today, I think, Anthony, what they're going to do is probably trade Alex Kerfoot, not because Alex Kerfoot's not playing well, because he is, but Alex Kerfoot's got 2 more years on his contract at $3.5 million, and next year the big, even bigger than Freddie Anderson in terms of them re-signing is Zach Hyman. Zach Hyman is a key player for the Leafs, and they're probably going to have to pay him over $4 million. I think he's worth it because he plays well on the third line, well on the second line, well on the first line. He's really good. But what I think they're going to do is they're going to trade Kerfoot for young assets, clear the $3.5 million for the future to sign Hyman, and then use those young assets to trade for maybe an Eric Stahl. I mean, not
old legs. How many old legs do you want in this lineup, Mike?
We're talking about him playing. We're talking about him playing second.
Okay, but you know what? Pretty soon we're going to be talking about, well, he's only going to play this amount of minutes, and he's only going to play this amount of minutes, and you're going to find yourself in like game 4 of the first round, and all of a sudden they're going to have to rely on these guys to come through, Spezza included. How many 30-something, 34, 35-year-old guys do you want in your lineup? There's a danger to that.
Ask Punch Imlock.
Yeah, whatever. There's a danger to it.
Yeah, I admit, like you can't have too many of them, Russ, but they do have a lot of young legs. They do have, Mikheyev, Engvall, Marner's 23 years old, Matthews is 23. I mean, Nylander. I mean, they're most of their forwards. I mean, they've sprinkled in the old guys like.
But if those guys had come through already in the playoffs, you wouldn't be looking at the older vets. It's okay to sprinkle in the older vets, but if all of a sudden you have to count on those guys, that's like counting on Dale Hawerchuk when he's on the Flyers.
Now, if they decide that they're going to keep Kerfoot, which they might for the rest of the year, then basically like Buffalo would have to retain half of Stahl's salary. He's 3.25, and that's like 1.6. That's not tough to fit. They may just trade a draft pick to get a veteran guy like.
I'll give you the player. You know who they're going to get, Mike? Mm-hmm. This would be so much better than the 30-something-year-old guys. Okay, and they would have to give up a prospect. Yeah, but Evander Kane.
No,
just hold on.
No. Negatory.
Hold on.
Not a free chance.
Okay. Are you done?
Yes.
Evander Kane's contract may get canceled. It may get blown up in bankruptcy court. The San Jose Sharks, because he has so much, I think he owes like $27 million to creditors.
Yeah.
If they cancel his contract, he doesn't have to pay the creditors. So then if they cancel his contract, he's just out there, and I think the Leafs would be able to get him for a song.
If that's okay, if it's a Zach Bogosian type of termination contract thing, then everybody's. But if you're talking about trading for him with 4 years left at $7 million,
no, those years would be terminated.
Yeah, if he's an unrestricted free agent, it's free money.
Well, and that's being talked about right now in court. Well, so see, you just needed to let me finish my sentence.
I never let you finish anything. But Anthony, what do you think about the Leafs? They're not going to trade for a goalie. They might look for a depth defenseman because I think
they're not going to trade for a goalie because Russ wills it. Let's
hold on.
That up.
I'm also going to debate this one. Michael Cohen says Zach Hyman's the best Jewish player in the NHL. After Quinn Hughes, after Adam Fox, then maybe.
I didn't know Quinn Hughes was Jewish. Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, I love.
Wait a minute. That means that so the Hughes family is Jewish.
Yeah.
I wasn't aware of that.
Now, I love Zach Hyman. He's I would love to have 10 Zach Hymans on any team that I root for. He's not as good as Quinn Hughes. Quinn Hughes is a difference-making defenseman. He's a number one defenseman, offensive guy, a point guy in the power play. But yeah,
Stahl, I would say I would agree. I would concur. I think if they are going to try to add anybody, Stahl seems to be the most likely to me.
Yeah, and you know what? I get, and believe me, I lost my crap yesterday when Russ was goading me with the Thomas Buchanan stuff.
Not hard to do. That wasn't hard. I sat back, I saw that, and I was red, like Montreal red, and you're a bull, basically.
I was giving an example. I was not quoting anybody.
It's like a lit match in a nitroglycerin factory. But see, the thing is, this is the thing. The Leafs are a legitimate contender this year. Now, whether they choke in the first round or go to the cup final, nobody knows. But it makes sense to make a deal like the Stahl deal now, giving up a draft pick. It didn't make sense 4 or 5 years ago when they traded a second-round pick for Brian Boyle when they were barely a playoff team, and it was all because of Babcock, because Babcock was crying that he didn't have a fourth-line center. And then the following year, they did the same thing for a washed-up Thomas Buchanan. They gave up a second-round pick for him. It's dumb to do that when you're not a legitimate contender. When you are, that's the deal you make. Now, that's why I think, if they can go out and trade for Raquel, or if they can go out and trade for a guy, great, but I don't think they want anybody who's got term left because they have.
I agree with that.
So anyway, all right, guys, great. Just William in the chat. Would somebody go big and try to get Ristolainen with an extra year at 5.5? I don't think anybody's trading for Ristolainen right now because he's coming off of COVID and he's not been the same player since. Anthony, you saw him in Philadelphia. He wasn't able to push guys out of the crease.
Yeah, he had a few decent hits, but beyond that, it wasn't a lot of physical expenditure on his part. And I get it, and I understand why.
Yeah.
And at that number at 5.5, no, and listen, I like Ristolainen. I think gets another year off. Gets the off season and gets himself. I still think there's something there with Ristolainen as in terms of being a good NHL defenseman. It's just I don't think anybody's going to take him this year, especially not a 5.
At the draft, I could see at the draft.
Yeah, at the draft for sure.
And I'll just say this to finish off with Sabre stuff. It's a train wreck, and there is something big going to happen. I don't think it's going to be Eichel. They're not going to trade Eichel. But I think you could see Sam Reinhart traded. I think you're definitely going to see the rentals traded, Hall, Stahl, Montour. But there is a feeling around here that
so they're going to blow up the locker room, and Ralph Kruger is going to walk out and like that and still survive.
I think Kruger is going to survive the year and get axed the day after the regular season. I mean, I think they realize that it's a disaster, but this is a disaster of their own making. They're following the sort of the Buffalo Bills model of management where the coach has actual say in the player personnel, and he's gone out and signed. They brought in Eakin, they brought in Reeder, they brought in Hall, all because they were guys that Kruger liked, and clearly didn't work.
I'm going to answer one thing in the chat room. Owen Power is going to go number 1. The other thing is, will Kruger get fired before the Bills have OTAs?
I don't know when they have OTAs. I think Kruger will be fired in May.
May is usually when they have OTAs, I think, too.
Yep. So I don't know, but I think he'll be fired.
It'll be close.
I think he'll be fired the day after.
I think it's time for a wing wager.
No, we don't have a wing wager. Actually, he already owes me. He already lost.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm saying double or nothing then.
Yeah. I'll take you to Anchor Bar, and you'll never come out alive.
I'll settle for Duffs. That's fine.
There you go. All right, great show, guys. We'll be back tomorrow. I believe we'll have Kevin Allen on the show. For Anthony Mangione, for Russ Cohen, I'm Michael Agello. Thank you for watching, and remember, without the buzz, it's just hockey.